All right, and share screen. Actually, let's first turn off my Microsoft Teams. Sometimes that pops up. Oops, wrong share. Okay, here we are. Can you all see my screen? Fabulous, thanks. Okay, well, thanks for joining us today for Symbiota Support Group August 10th, 2026, after a little hiatus for July. We appreciate you all taking the time to be here. Lots going on. We have a lot of news to share today, as well as discussing the image hosting that we're rolling out at this end of the year. So first of all, we're going to share some updates. We're going to talk about kind of like a brief refresher about how images are dealt with in Symbiota portals. And then we're going to talk about if you host your images with the Symbiota Support Hub, what does that mean for you? Okay, first, some important updates. One of them is just a thank you for those of you who are able to visit us at the Botany 2026 meeting. We had a Symbiota booth there. And yes, little baby Symbiota had a cameo if you were lucky enough to catch him. And thanks to all of our wonderful speakers who contributed to the Herbarium Consortia Roundup Colloquium that the Symbiota Support Hub helped to host. And we really appreciate everyone's input on that colloquium. It was a really great time. Okay, so into the updates. So as you are mostly aware, iDigBio, who has been the source of our primary funding, is going into a no-cost extension year as of August 31st. So that's only a few weeks away, really. The iDigBio portal has been kind of shut down and replaced by a GBIF hosted portal. So pretty much your data must go into GBIF if you're going to want it to be shared through iDigBio now. All iDigBio hosted images need to find a new home, and hopefully you received an email from one of us if you have any that are on Symbiota portals. If you didn't receive an email, that probably means that you don't have any iDigBio hosted images. The short and sweet of that is that if they are on a Symbiota portal, then we are migrating them for you because we don't want them to lapse, and they're going to just be included in your normal hosted totals. So we will have let you know of that. And if you have any like alternative hosting plans, then just let us know and we won't finalize that migration. So again, if you had any iDigBio hosted images, you should have received an email that looks like this. It has this big list of all the collections that have iDigBio hosted images. And again, we are transferring those for you. Okay, so with iDigBio coming to a close, that means that the funding for the Symbiota Support Hub is ending. So this is a no-cost extension. That means no additional funds are being added to the grant, which means no additional funds are provided for the Symbiota Support Hub team. So with that, and because many of our other grants have come to a close or are coming to a close, we have had to downsize the team. So our three developers, Logan, Mark, and Nikita, they are no longer funded. And then Lindsay is no longer funded. She has transitioned to a new position with the Neotoma Paleoecology database. We are all super sad to see all of these people having to move on. We know it's kind of the inevitable of grant-funded endeavors, and that's why we're working so hard on this sustainability plan, but we're really sad to see them all go. If you think about it, please shoot them an email and thank you for their wonderful work. Lindsay started her new job today, so she wasn't able to join us for Symbiota Support Group. It was really fast turnaround. But please do send her an email and thank her for all her good work, as well as Logan and Mark and Nikita. So all of this is, of course, going to mean we are working on basically a skeleton crew. It's not only that we've had to downsize our team, but we're also downsizing our effort because we are really severely dropping in our amounts of funding. So Greg is part-time. He's providing servers, maintenance, security. He's doing a lot of the image migration, etc. I'm part-time, even more so than before. I'm doing data management, help desk, admin, trying to get all these invoices out, things like that. And then Ed is extremely part-time with the Symbiota Support Hub, and he's primarily funded with Neon at ASU. So he's going to continue to do some development according to Neon priorities and also some bug fixes. But what you're going to see is probably much slower response times in general, much slower action on many of the help desk items, other miscellaneous requests, and our development is going to slow way, way down. So if you have anything that you want developed, it's likely going to need funding before it can be moved forward. Okay, those are kind of some really big and somewhat sad updates. Do we have any questions on those before we move forward into talking about images? Yeah, Jean?
I didn't get an email, but I'm through the Myco portal. Is that because Myco portal is hosting the pictures, the photos?
I'm pretty sure all of the Myco portal images are still stored on, if you don't host them yourself, they're still on University of Illinois servers.
Yeah,
And so those aren't iDigBio servers. I
that
think
explains
our
it.
plan is to eventually migrate those all to KU servers, but that's kind of like a many steps down the line thing. So they're not in peril right now.
Okay, thanks.
Allison, question?
Yes. Do you have an emergency plan in place in case there is some sort of denial of service attack or ransomware attack or any of those other things we're facing these days with a lower amount of staff? What would happen if something like that occurred?
The short answer is that probably Greg, Ed, and I will become volunteers.
Hmm.
We do have some grants that are likely going to be funded. I don't know if any of them are public yet, but we have not completely run out of money. There is more grants coming through the pipeline, but they're not quite stood up yet. And then, of course, the image hosting is going to help bolster us too. So we're not
When
fully out of money, just close.
So I think I got an email yesterday, and would you like us to start paying for that? Like, is there a time frame?
For the image hosting,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is
we'll
that
be
a
talking about that in this
okay?
meeting. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay, I think I saw a few in the chat. I'll take a look at. Are you planning on moving toward a fee-based service? We'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about image hosting, but great question, Nadia. Any chance of funding being resurrected in the future? Yeah, like I mentioned, we have some grants that we are part of or working on. We also have a couple of contracts that are still like eking their way through the system. So those are going to be um, helping soon. But then we are also working on our sustainability plan, one prong of which is the image hosting costs, which we were previously just floating. Yeah, Jean?
I've set up my donations from required minimum distributions, and part of those go to iDigBio, but they're directed through Kansas State University where the servers are. Is that the best place for that to continue going?
I'm not sure about iDigBio because iDigBio is pretty much going to be non-existent as far as I know. But University of Kansas would be where you would want to put your donations if you
That's
were
where it
supporting
is.
the Symbiota Support Hub.
Yeah, that's where it's going. So keep that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. So you guys likely have seen our donate buttons on many of the portals. They're mostly on the home page, so sometimes you can miss them. But those donate buttons will go to the University of Kansas endowment. It's really neat. The endowment at KU, 100% of the funds you donate to the endowment go directly to the people that you're giving them to. So that would go to us. There is no administrative overhead. So that's a nice thing about if you choose to donate. If you have any like really excited super users of your portal, you could say, hey, here's a link, come donate. All right. Now I'm going to go back to sharing. Oops, not that. This is what the KU endowment page looks like. And you can see it goes to Symbiota Support Hub specifically. If you want to make sure that it goes to a particular portal, you do need to consider that donating is not like a fee for service thing. So saying that it's going to a specific portal, you can't necessarily say this is only to be used for this portal. If you're donating for the Symbiota Support Hub, you're supporting the whole ecosystem, which includes your portal. So that's kind of why there's no like per portal donation link right now. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the image portion of sustainability and the kind of upcoming fees for those who have images on Symbiota Support Hub servers. So first of all, a reminder that images don't actually live in the portals. So there is no, it's not like Cynet has your data and your images in that same server. How it really exists in the database is that there is an images table that has all the images information, and Cynet just shows you the information that's in the images table. Cynet or MicroPortal or Lichen Portal or InvertiBase or whatever portal you're working with. So the Symbiota portal will show you those links, and those links are showing you where those images live. And those images can live in a Symbiota Support Hub server or some other server. So when you upload data into a portal, that actually goes into the portal database. But when you upload images into a portal, only a link to the image is going into the portal database, and then your actual image is going into some other image server. So if you're uploading the images to your portal, they're living on a Symbiota Support Hub image server. If you host your own images, that means that you generate links to your images and you just upload those links to the portal. That way, when someone clicks on the link, they're actually looking at your image server or whatever you have chosen for your hosting. So images can live anywhere where they're accessible via a link, but that's easier said than done. Images have to be web accessible, which usually requires those servers to have some pretty high security measures because you're basically allowing any rando on the internet to go and look at an asset on your server. So if you just ask someone at your IT, like, hey, can I put images on a server? They'll be like, sure, no problem. But if you need them to be web accessible, you just need to make sure that when you're talking to your IT folks, that they know that that's the purpose, that they are going to be web accessible. So for example, Harvard, they host their own images. I'm pretty sure they use Amazon Web Services. And they need a link that's directly to their image asset in this case. Theoretically, they should all be HTTPS, so this is probably an old link. But I would recommend when you go to that particular link, it should go to the image asset, not like a page on a website that has that image on it. So the images can live on your own server, a web accessible server that you pay for, like Amazon Web Services, or they can live on Symbiota Support Hub servers. And you might say like, well, I mean, how do I figure out where my images actually live? Like I'm coming to this party late. I don't actually know where a lot of my images are. You can check the image URL. So I'm just going to open this example here. So on a specimen record, you can see here's the image. And if I hover over, you can just see in the bottom left corner here that it's showing me the image link. But even if I click the file, then you can see it in the browser here. So if it says media01.symbiota.org, that means that your images are on a Symbiota Support Hub server. There are also some, if they say like cch2.org/portal/media, blah, 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 those are also on Symbiota Support Hub servers. So just be aware of that. That's how you can figure out where your images live. But let's say I went to Cernic and let's see, who do I know who's hosting their own images? Probably just Harvard. I mean, there's a lot who are doing it, but I'm just picking on Harvard right now. But if I looked at an image from Harvard, say I went to the public display page, I can hover over this and I can see that it says https://data/hoh.harvard.edu. So I am assuming that they are living on their own servers. Yeah, so they're doing Amazon Web Services apparently. And then if you see something that says like idigbio or api.idigbio.org, that means that those live on idigbio servers, and those are the ones that we are migrating over to Symbiota Support Hub servers. Okay, any questions about how images exist with respect to your specimen records? Okay, we'll move right along then. You can always put questions in the chat. Okay, so if you host your images on Symbiota Support Hub servers, we are beginning to roll out, because of idigbio ending, we're rolling out an image hosting fee structure. And the intention to this is to float the costs of those images on our server, as well as the personnel costs it takes to manage them and keep them sustainable and backed up. So based on, we had previously decided that the rate is $3 per gigabyte, and that has come about through a bunch of calculations that we did when we were setting up our service center, which approximated how much like physical server costs there are, plus the administrative and maintenance costs there are, the personnel that are maintaining those images. And we got $3 per gig. We also wanted to make sure that like particularly smaller collections are not, priced out, or, but there's tons of collections that don't have any budgets, and we want to respect that. We understand that. And so there's this free tier of about 25 gigs per live collection. And when we were setting this up, we just figured it was going to be really cumbersome to calculate everybody's particular amounts that they owe at one particular point in time and send them that invoice that's like, $138.23. So we created bins, and the idea is that these bins are easier for you all to budget for, they're easier for us to budget for, and they do not disincentivize adding new images because you might just be like, oh, I'm not going to add images because that's going to be $7 more that I'm adding to a bill. So if you have 25 to 100 gigabytes, then that's $100 a year. 100 to 250 gigabytes, 400. 251 to 500 gigabytes is 800 a year. 500 to 1,000 gigs is 2,000. And then if you have over 1,000 gigs, that's over a terabyte, then the suggested cost is 4,500 a year. And the reason why this says suggested cost, or we could even call it suggested contribution, is because We understand that not everybody has these in their budgets. We understand that maybe people actually have more or they have less available for their budgets. And this is very much like a pay as you can, which I'm going to reiterate in a second. So what does image hosting with the Symbiota Support Hub include? What do you get for that money? You get your web accessible images, a large, a medium, and a thumbnail version. The thumbnails and the mediums take up a relatively small amount of space, so they shouldn't contribute to your totals too much. We provide cold storage backup. This says 2 times per year, but I think that right now it's pretty much only annual, and we're going to work toward doing 2 times per year. What is not included with Symbiota Support Hub hosting is archival images. So we won't take your DNGs or CR2s or NEF files. Those are just like enormous and not necessary to link to the portals. And of course, with this is all the troubleshooting that you get. Like if your images aren't working or they've got linked to the wrong place, we can help move those things around in the database backend. It's the help desk. It's being able to batch upload new images using our protocols, using Globus. All of that is all included. So there's a few important notes I want to make about image hosting with the Symbiota Support Hub. It's that image hosting fees are largely supporting the personnel costs of migrating and maintaining image servers. So there's been a couple of migrations already. Those happen due to necessary upgrades, or in the past they've existed because they've moved between institutions. We've done that kind of with no additional requests for help, no additional funding. We've had to migrate the things from Heidig Bio to ASU and then ASU to KU. There's been a lot of moving and remapping and making sure that the images are still working. The revenue from image hosting also helps defray general portal and server maintenance costs. So the actual servers are not like $100,000. But service costs are definitely pretty high. And having, if you're paying for someone to take care of your images, they are also taking care of the major services. So this is a way that we can help sustain the Symbiota Support Hub moving forward. They are, however, not our primary sustainability model. It's not the way that we plan to make the most of our bare minimum money. We have grants, we have an additional sustainability model that we're working on. So if you're like, oh, I really can't afford that, I'm going to move them over to this much cheaper service, don't worry about bankrupting us if you need to do that. And again, I want to reiterate that our ethos is very much still pay as you can. We're not going to throw images away. If you cannot pay this year, if you cannot pay next year, again, we're not throwing anything away. We understand. And if you're like, well, I need to migrate this thing so that I can save $100, don't migrate your images. Just pay us less. Because migrating the images is also a lot of work, as I just mentioned. So we don't want to be charging for things, obviously. Like, we all got into this because we want to provide the maximum service for you all. We know you guys are working super hard, often with limited funding, with limited resources, with limited time, and we're trying to make things as easy as possible. But at some point, we do have to pay the bills. So this is part of that sustainability model. Okay, so what is this going to look like practically? Our current plan is that we are emailing all the collections that have 100 or more gigabytes of storage, or taking up 100 or gigabytes or more. So if you have 100 or more gigabytes, then you received an email from us, hopefully, saying this is your expected, or this is your suggested, not donation, your expected cost due to that image space. Right now, we're gauging capacity, we're gathering billing information, we're setting those of you who have the ability to contribute as customers in our customer database. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that we have a Symbiota support group that's talking about this, rolling it out, and answering any questions you may have. This month, we're going to be working on invoicing the collections that indicate that they have capacity to contribute. And then in the spring, we'll be following up with any collections who said, yeah, I don't have any capacity now, but I might have capacity in the future. So that's the plan for now. We are not contacting folks who are in that 25 to 100 gigabyte section, largely just because that's like an additional 80 collections. And with a part-time staff, we just don't have time. But if you know for sure that you're like, yeah, my collection can contribute $100 and we have probably, I don't know, 75 gigs, then we would love it if you reach out to us and get an invoice. It's just nice to be able to put that in, but writing 82 more emails is just going to be a lot of overhead that we don't have capacity for at this time. So that's pretty much where we are with image hosting. And I will go ahead and stop sharing and answer any questions you may have. And if you are curious about how much space you're taking and you didn't receive an email from me, feel free to just shoot me an email and I can tell you what your totals are.
Katie, when would you like to receive the money? You're going to send us an invoice through email, so we have something to show the people who would write you a check.
Mhm.
So when's the best time to actually send that out, or what's my timeline?
Your timeline is really whatever you need. We don't have like this is your deadline. We understand that a lot of people's fiscal years like just started and they didn't have anything budgeted. So if you're like, well, I might be able to scrap something together by spring, then we're like, that's totally fine. In the survey that we sent as part of the email, we have whether you prefer to be billed like in July or December. That's going to be our kind of two billing times. So that we can only, do a swath here and then a swath there. But for this time, we're just going to be sending out invoices as we have ability, and they don't really have like this is your final date and we're going to delete your images.
Okay, that's awfully nice of you. Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Kirsten says, I missed the beginning, so may have covered this, but I've seen some people link to photos posted on iNaturalist. What do you think of that idea? I think that that is fine if you have like field images that are currently hosted on iNaturalist. I don't know of a good way to batch get all of your image links to iNaturalist. It may exist, I just don't know. But those are technically hosted on iNaturalist supported servers, so those don't contribute toward the hosting costs. Donna asks, is the annual fee on a calendar year basis? Depends on whether you want to be billed in July or December, or if you're like, I absolutely must be billed in April, you can tell us. So it's just kind of going to be, we send the invoice now or in December or in July. And then the next time that comes around, then we'll send another invoice.
Katie, is there any way that we can sort of check for ourselves how much storage we're using, or is there a way for us to sort of monitor our server usage without
It's a good
contacting you?
question. Yeah, I don't think there really is because like many collections have like a history of uploading much bigger images than certain collections do. Like you might like look at a few of your images and get kind of an average size and then just, guesstimate. But I don't think we really have any way of doing it without contacting us.
As you've, sorry, a quick follow-up. As you've
Go for it.
sort of evaluated all of the um, um, institutions or portal collections you're hosting, um, you've probably got a calculation of um, what sort of storage happens right now. Is that correct? Um, is it possible to post like that snapshot in a publicly facing way, maybe a page or a document somewhere?
Like per collection?
Yeah.
I've been very back and forth about that because I don't want like some people to feel like people are looking over their shoulder about like, "Ooh, why do you have like 3 terabytes of images?" You know?
Got it.
So,
Okay, that's fair.
um, Allison asked, I'm looking at the bill request form. Will we be invoiced separately for images and portal hosting, or can they be rolled into one? Also, we have 5 portal presences. Most of them are small, but collectively may add up. Can one bill cover the sum of all of them? Okay, good question, Allison. There's kind of like multiple things that I want to point at there. One of them is we are not currently charging for portal hosting. The plan is that we are going to have some goal totals per portal based on the activity of those portals. Again, they're going to be very much goals that the portal communities can work toward. That's going to be completely separate from image hosting. That's not like you owe this. Not that our image hosting is really that, but like the image hosting is very much a calculation based on a rate. And then the portal hosting is going to be what as a community can we all at CCH2 or we all at CERDEC contribute. And that funding can come not only from collections, but donors, grants, like any way that money can be contributed toward a portal community. That's another part of our sustainability plan that we're not really going into detail here. But I think it does bring up a good question, Allison, that like, are these two different things? They are completely different things. However, if you have capacity to contribute toward your portal, toward portal hosting, in addition to the image hosting, those can totally be wrapped into one invoice. So if you're like, I would like to annually contribute $500 in addition to the $400 that I am expected to contribute for my images, that's great. We can sign you up to annually get an invoice for $900 in that case. And we are also intending to send those invoices out per institution as much as possible so that you aren't getting like, here's your Bryophyte total, here's your Lichen total, here's your Myco total, here's your CCH2 total. We are trying to add them all together. And so if you got an image hosting email from us, hopefully it has all of your collections that have images listed in that table. Most of them are like under the 25 gigs free tier, and you'll just have like one large collection that is above the free tier. But if not, then we're rolling everything together. And I see someone says UBSC is also on 5 portals and strongly prefer only one bill. Yes, so would we. We don't want to send out 5 invoices if we can send out one. Okay, I'm going to get to the rest of the ones in the chat, and then I see that the South Carolina Consortium has a question, so I'll talk to you guys in just a second. Al asks, are the total images gigabytes higher than expected because you're not only counting the JPEGs, but also the thumbnails? I think the total space that we're seeing is not higher than, like, is actually pretty low in many cases. Because the thumbnails take up just like a sliver of data. Granted, if you have like 1 million, that's going to be a little bit more than a sliver, but I don't think that you're going to see tons and tons of space difference between if you have thumbnails and you don't have thumbnails. Harpo asks, can you reiterate the timeline collections are expected to pay by? It is flexible. There is no particular timeline. If you say, hey, we could do this by July, great. If you say we could do this right now, great. If you say I can't do it this year, but I could do it next year because I could put that in my budget, great. We understand.
Katie, have you gone over the survey form?
I have not, no.
The way that it initiates the process of even being able to initiate an invoice to any institution, we have a Microsoft Office survey form, and it asks you all of these questions like, what frequency would you like to be invoiced? What time of year would you like to be invoiced? Who is the appropriate fiscal contact at your university? Sort of all those kinds of questions, like, do you want this to be a one-time invoice or a recurring invoice? And so it allows each institution to, say what it is that works best for them. And Katie just put that form in the chat. And so I think even just seeing the questions in that form sort of gives you a sense of how flexible the process can be.
Okay, and then I'm gonna do Ashley's question and then South Carolina Consortium. Ashley asks, what about having something on our portal, our profile within the portal we are in, so space can be viewed by a curator or a collections manager? That would be awesome. We would love that, but that takes development that we currently don't have a lot of capacity for. Okay, South Carolina Consortium, you have your hand up. I don't hear anything yet. Still no.
Now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello? No. Okay, can you hear us now?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Hi, Katie. So you kind of suggested this answer, but I wanted to clarify. So let's say I have grant money this year, and I would like to pay not just for what I'm expected to pay for my herbarium now, but I'd like to put in money for maybe next year or the next 2 years because I know I have funding now. Is that something that can be done and then earmarked for being clear for the next few years, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's a great question.
Thank
We
you.
can, in our little invoice, we can say what your service duration is.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, Beth asks, we have DNGs submitted earlier in the Cyverse era. Does that count toward the gigabyte estimates and price bin? I do not believe so. I think those only went into cold storage and we did not put them into our media servers.
And then there's another question from Allison about the African vouchers are housed on CCH2, but also mirrored in Africa plants. And so how is that covered? It's really only one instance of the image. It doesn't really matter how many different portals point to that one image. It just counts as one image.
Yeah, great question. And Jen's exactly right. The nice thing about that little diagram I showed you earlier where like your images live in this little database server thing, and then the links live in some other place. That means that no matter how many Symbiota portals that one image is in, you don't actually copy that image and put it in the next portal. You just point it to that exact same place. So all of your images will only take up space in one place. And then Donna says the details Jen mentioned only comes if you reply yes to the basic survey. Yes. So if you like in the Microsoft form, if you click yes, then it will be like, okay, please enter your billing information. And I think there's a notes area in there too. So if you're like, okay, I said yes, but I only have $100, like that's fine. Like you can just put that in the notes.
It's also to follow up on the South Carolina Consortium question there. It is because we all operate in boom and bust cycles. Like if there is a group that has a grant that could cover portal support or maybe image hosting for a lot of collaborators for 1 year, then you could just fill out that form one time and say in that notes section, sort of like who it's covering. And that, is great for everybody.
Yeah, and Jen, you came a little bit after I had answered Allison's question about whether they're being invoiced for image hosting versus portal hosting separately. And I alluded to the fact that we are going to have goal totals that portals can aspire to. That's totally separate from image hosting. Do you want to say anything more about that? We're going to have a Symbiota support group where we delve into that more, but I don't know if you want to mention anything more about that plan.
Sure. We had a meeting with some key Symbiota people and all of the various portal managers 2 weeks ago now. And we just this past week sent them a whole bunch of materials to share with all of the portal communities. And so essentially what we did was ranked all the portals by activity and size. And so you have, your top 10 most active, biggest portals, and then your next tier. And we've set for those portal communities a goal of like the top portals is $15,000. So I'm in the California consortium. So for California, we're in the top tier. So can we as a portal community support the Symbiota ecosystem with 15,000? And so what each of your various portal managers will be doing is sort of getting everybody together and talking about that. Like how can you as a community do that, if at all? It's a goal, it's a target, it's what we need for the Symbiota Support Hub to be sustainable at this skeletal level. So your portal managers have the data now of what every collection that's hosting images on the portals, and so they know like what you're being asked to pay for image hosting. So that's part of the conversation. But the goal for the portal is in addition to the image hosting. And so it's, I think at the botany meeting, it came up like, oh, if you just tripled the image storage, it would cover everything. If you just tripled the bill that everyone got for image storage, that would actually cover the sustainability of the entire Symbiota ecosystem in its current iteration. And so that's one way to think about it. For me in my collection, I can support at about $1,000 a year. I only got imaged. My image invoice is $800. So that means that I could contribute an extra $200 toward our portal goal. And so that's sort of the way that we're thinking about it. That $15,000 target for the most active portals, that's something that if somebody just wrote one grant and included portal hosting for $15,000 each year for 5 years, right, that would cover it for the entire portal community. And so your portal managers have all of the data associated with what are the biggest collections and institutions that are active in the various portals. And maybe some of those really active institutions could take on more of a stewardship role and support the portals at like $10,000 or $5,000 annually. If they did that, that would really sustain the network of small collections that are not going to be able to support it at all. And we realize that most of the collections operating in our portals don't have the resources to support it. And so we are trying to come up with some really creative ways to sustain everybody. And to do so, we have to call on some of the institutions that are more well-resourced.
Thanks, Jen. Any other questions about images, sustainability?
There's another
Billing,
question from
etc.
Donna in the chat, which says, if we
Yes.
transition our images to another server, will the links still push from Symbiota to GBIF at the regular update interval?
Yep. Yeah. Whatever links you have in the database, whether they're from your own hosted or from Symbiota Support Hub hosted, those links are the same ones that will be pushed to GBIF. If you can see it in Symbiota, you can see it in GBIF.
And I'm going to say something that maybe Katie already said at the beginning, but I'll say it again because I think it's worth repeating, is that we are not in a situation of wanting people to move their images off of our servers. In fact, I think that it's the best and most efficient thing to have Greg and Katie be able to help you with your images, because they have access to the server that those images are on. And if you ever have any problem, you have staff people who can access those images. So the charging for image hosting is just a way to try to capitalize on an actual service. If you cannot pay it, then just leave everything alone and as it is. We don't want to create extra work for people where you now need to scramble and are trying to save money, so you're going to move your images off of these servers. Don't do that. Like, if you can't pay it, just leave everything as is right now, and we're going to try to shoot for sustainability in other ways. But it is worth saying that image hosting bill, like, when you pay it, it's actually supporting the entire Symbiota ecosystem. So it's a valuable thing to be doing if you're able to do it, whether you're doing it as an image hosting invoice or whether you're doing it as like an invoice just for supporting your portal. So from our perspective, it doesn't actually matter too much which avenue the funds are coming in. What matters is that Katie has a part-time job and Greg has a part-time job, so that all of our portals stay active and alive. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Ashley has a question. Is there a concern about sustainability beyond this initial push? What discussions have taken place around a longer term resolution to this challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that that's a hard question, Ashley. But like we will have to see how this initial push goes, right? It's going to be very telling, like, how the next year goes. We are also reaching out to the institutions who are sort of the biggest users of Symbiota. Those, in many cases, these are institutions that can afford to pay for a content management system. And in this case, they've been using Symbiota and they've been getting that for free forever. So if those organizations or those institutions could step up and support it, it'll bring everybody up. And so it's a roundabout way of saying we are going to see how this level of asking the community for support goes. That will help us gauge either how dire or how cushy of a situation we're in. And then we'll go from there. Like, the other models on the table are almost every other content management software for natural history collections charges you a membership fee or a subscription fee based on the size of your collection or how many specimens are in your content database. So that's how all of the rest of them work. And we have all of the numbers. We have their business plan. We can see how that works. So we've looked at that. Symbiota generally does not want to go that route unless we absolutely have to, but it's sort of against our ethos to do that. And so that is why our first push is to just say, for those who can support, please support, and let's see how far that gets us. And that might be far enough. The other reality is that usually we have multiple NSF grants. Like, the Symbiota Support Hub has hustled for the last 5 years of trying to write new proposals to support code development. And it's just that right now NSF is crazy and we're in a lull. And so a component, like, the dream is to have successful proposals, and then we can bring back on some of our software developers who are behind the scenes, like, working on the code to innovate it and initiate all these new features. And so, I mean, that's a whole different lane of the sustainability planning, is just being subawards or contractors on all of your proposals, things like that, so that we can continue to advance Symbiota. So I realize that's not a very satisfying answer, but we are trying to see how far this effort gets us and then reevaluate what we need to do as a community. But our sense so far, from having talked to all the portal managers, and they have a good sense of the institutions and their collection, and we also have a lot of external partners, right? People who use these portals for their work and the data, who everybody has been very enthusiastic and supportive. And so, I'm very optimistic that as a community we can support this effort, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Jen said about the proposals. Like, we are definitely trying to lean on our community, you all, as little as possible. We've put in over $6 million of proposals in the last like 3 years, and they're all shot down, all not given. So we're trying really hard as well. But you all know how the funding situation is out there too. So yes, South Carolina Consortium.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
So there was a question earlier in our meeting for the donation button on Cernak portal. If someone, like, we send someone philanthropic to go and donate on that portal, or through the Cernak portal on that button, is that recorded and added to the Cernak portal's like contribution for the year? Is it flagged in some way?
Good question. It is not. There's kind of two reasons for that. There is a link that we can send that has like a place where you can put additional notes, and you could have someone put the portal there. But as a donation, you technically cannot like say it's for this service, because that is not a donation, that becomes a contract. So
Katie,
like we're kind of, sorry, go ahead.
well, I just want to interrupt because we are supposed to have unique links on each of the portals so that from our end, we see exactly which portal that donation came in through. But that was like a promise that the donation team gave us, and I don't think has actually been implemented yet. But that's like a
Also
thing
that.
we'll be fighting about, because yeah, we want to be able to see the tally. Absolutely. If we can't see the tally, the donation button on the website is worthless, and we should just send them to a Microsoft Office form where they like say the things they want to say. And so it is supposed to be that it's a unique link on each portal and that we can see where it came from. That way we could do exactly what you're saying, count it toward the Cernak portal. But I don't think that's implemented currently.
We don't have a great way of doing that yet.
But that's a great reminder to hassle them again right now. So thank you.
And then Al said that they did a survey of 6% of their images and extrapolated a total of 81 gigs for their entire vascular plant collection. And then we are reporting a next higher bin. Is there any thoughts on the difference? And my experience is that, like, back in the very earlier days of imaging, we made images that were a lot bigger because we thought they were necessary to be that big to see the types of things that you need on herbarium specimens. But we've noticed that you don't actually need that big of images, and so more compression has happened more recently. So you might check your older images and see if those ones are bigger than your younger images. And it could also be because you have thumbnails and mediums. Mike says, Katie, did you tell me one time that image hosting compresses the images so that less memory is actually used? Yeah, so when we ingest your images using the current image hosting processes, your images probably end up being like less than a megabyte a piece, or a megabyte or two a piece. So if you're like, oh, I sent these things and maybe they were way too big, take another look at them, because like on our servers, they don't end up taking up that much space. And Greg can correct me if I'm wrong or speaking gibberish here.
But
Carrie, you
Al,
have a question? Oh,
well,
go
let me
ahead.
just follow up on that size thing real quick. If there have been a couple collections that have said like, whoa, I think that's way more than we should have. And Katie has been able to go in and look at it. And then we realized like, oh, a compression never happened on these images, or, oh, they're all duplicated, or something weird has happened in the folders. And so if there's something seems out of place, like by all means, let us know about it. And then the other thing to remember is that, like Al, if you got put in a higher bin, but you can only afford so much, that is okay. So go ahead, Terry.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Yeah.
actually, sorry, before you do that,
Okay.
Terry, I wanted to follow up on Jen saying there are a few particularly really large collections in the Cernic group, and I think that those were created, 11 years ago or something, and they uploaded them and they were like 10 megabytes a piece. So like there are some folders where the images are like 10 to 12 megabytes a piece, and you really don't need that type of size. So if you're like, wow, I have 88,000 records and I have apparently 3 terabytes of storage, we're working on that. We also think that that's ridiculous. So we're going to see what our options are for being able to batch compress them and take up less space. Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
I think that might just have answered my question. You were talking about older images being larger files, and we started uploading images in 2019, 2020, and we always had the same size limit, but we went through, I think it was iDigBio, Cyverse, and Symbiota Support, and different. Does any of that have a difference in how large our files are? Like, how do we know if we have these extra large images, if that's a problem?
I'm guessing you guys probably don't, but because like the uploading to Cyverse, I think there was some compression there. It's possible your iDigBio ones are like a little bit larger, but we can take a look in the folders and see if there's anything like, oh, all of these are 8.
Okay, and one more follow-up question then. So the iDigBio, what's the time limit or timeline where it was iDigBio, then it moved to Cyverse? Like what year did that happen? Or what, or do you have those dates available or?
I believe the giant Cyverse migration happened in 2022. Do you think that's right, Greg, or was it 2023?
That was off of Cyverse to iDigBio.
Yeah.
It's saying, yeah.
No, that was off of Cyverse to, so there was 2 transitions at least for the California group. There was we stopped using iDigBio servers and we started using Cyverse, and I believe that was in 2019. And then when everything got migrated from Cyverse onto, at that time, ASU servers, that I believe was 2022.
It looks like actually our migration of Cyber's assets to KU servers was in mid to late 2023.
Oh, okay, good to know.
Thank you.
Michelle had 2 questions, and Jen, I think, kind of answered them. Is there going to be any special cost for Herbaria in public universities in developing countries? And what will happen to the data if we fail to pay the annuity? There is currently no differentiation between developing countries and others, but as we've been reiterating, this is pay as you can. And if you cannot, that's it.
One of the things that we are the most proud of as the Symbiota Support Hub is that collections with no resources who are struggling can get their data online and published very easily. Like that is the thing that's why we're all a part of this project. And so particularly in developing countries where, I mean, just to give you a couple examples, we got contacted by a collection in the Ukraine, and they said like, we need our data online. I have an Excel spreadsheet, like, please just get the data online, because they didn't know what was going to happen to it. And the same thing happened in Madagascar. And so, anyway, we always want to be able to do that. But when we have an opportunity to ask a well-resourced collection to support all of you, this whole network, like, we'll certainly do that. So for example, we just got a GBIF award to be working with what's the scope of the countries on the GBIF award?
I think it's a few Latin American countries, but I don't remember which ones.
And most of those collections for the like are so under-resourced that we're never going to ask them for anything. And in fact, the better solution is to ask well-resourced American collections to potentially support their colleagues in the countries that they work in, right? So that's another avenue that we're pursuing. Like you see some unlikely supporters in the humanities at many universities where the humanities departments are actually coming to the defense of the Duke Herbarium. And so I think there's like some unexplored angles of support across our institutions. But anyway, I think I've answered the question.
Yeah. And then just underscoring that, like, we also are trying to think about this as more of a community problem, not like a collections problem. Like collections need to pay their bills. It's not, we're trying to get away from that and think about like who holistically is benefiting from and contributing to these super rich data resources and thus may be willing to contribute more. Like we're thinking about professional societies, we're thinking about, of course, philanthropy, we're thinking about, native land trusts and, natural land trusts and things like that. So think broadly, and we really need your guys' help because you guys know the communities, organizations that are out there who may be willing to contribute to your favorite portals.
And since this webinar has been solely focused on the fact that you guys all got an email that said, please pay this amount for your image hosting, I just want to reiterate that we would certainly love it if you paid that amount. But if you cannot pay that amount, pay what you can. And if you cannot pay anything, then don't do any work. We don't want anybody to have to do unnecessary work to move things around between servers. So the whole point of the Symbiota Support Hub is to try to save you all from doing unnecessary work. And so that's sort of our takeaway message about image hosting.
All right, well, we're already 4 minutes over, and I want to respect all of your time. Feel free to send us any questions you have. If you want to know your total and you didn't get that email, totally reach out to us. And I'm sure we'll be continuing to answer questions about this as we move forward, and we'll just continue to talk about our sustainability of our favorite portals.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.